I wasn't meant to be there that night. Honestly, I almost skipped it altogether. The invitation had been sitting, still sealed, on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks. A college reunion. 10 years since we tossed our caps into the air and walked away from that chapter. But with it came memories I had no desire to revisit and faces I wasn't eager to see again. Still, something about the silence in my apartment that evening felt more suffocating than usual. Maybe it was the steady rhythm of the rain tapping against the windows. Maybe the whiskey had settled in too deep. Or maybe, just maybe, I was tired of my own company. So I went. I showed up late, intentionally. Just after the awkward greetings and the rehearsed speeches had wrapped up. The gymnasium had been transformed with strings of fairy lights and soft jazz renditions of pop hits echoing through the space. People were already tipsy, their laughter too loud, their conversations overlapping. I got myself a drink and hung back the way I always did, watching rather than participating. That's when I saw her. Standing beside the old trophy case, she wore a deep green dress that traced the curves of her body effortlessly. Her hair had grown longer since the last time I saw her, but her presence, poised, quietly radiant, hadn't changed a bit. Claire Bennett. She was the girl I'd admired from a distance, but never once had the courage to talk to. Always 2 rows ahead of me in English literature, jotting poems in the margins of her notes. She had been warmth in a cold lecture hall, always laughing with her friends while I stayed in the background. She belonged to the world of light and expression. I kept to the shadows. And yet here we were 10 years later and she was standing alone. This time something in her posture looked uncertain. I should have turned around, slipped away. But something pulled me forward. "Claire," I said, my voice barely audible over the music. I turned. Her eyes locked onto mine. For a second there was something, a flicker of confusion, then recognition, and finally, a soft smile. "Ryan Hart," she said. "Didn't think I'd see you here. You remember me?" I asked, surprised. "Of course. You sat behind me in Mr. Lakes's class. Always had your headphones on, even when they weren't connected to anything." I chuckled, slightly embarrassed. The silence felt easier that way. She didn't look away. Her gaze lingered. "Still does. Sometimes," I said. We stood there, like phantoms wandering through a place that once belonged to us. The space between us didn't hum with nostalgia. It felt like something else. A quiet, unfamiliar permission to become more than we once were. She tilted her head slightly. "Want to go somewhere quieter?" He nodded. We made our way to the old library. The halls were dim and hushed, the kind of silence that carries weight. The library door creaked open just like it always had, and the scent of old pages and ink greeted us like an old friend. We settled into a corner, the poetry section. "I used to come here when everything felt too loud," she said, her voice soft. "Same here," I replied. She glanced at me. "Really?" I looked at her. "Why did you come tonight?" I hesitated, then answered honestly. "I guess I just needed to feel something real again." Her expression shifted, softened. "Yeah, me too." Talk. About everything and nothing. About how life had pushed us down different paths. She told me she worked with a non-profit now, helping young artists find their voice. I shared that I was a freelance editor. Mostly working alone, mostly living quietly. She opened up about her mother. The illness, the sleepless nights, and the goodbye that still felt unfinished. I told her about my brother. The accident. The guilt I'd never managed to put down. We didn't cry, but we easily could have. The quiet between us felt sacred. A space where grief was understood, even without being spoken aloud. At some point, she reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Her touch was steady and warm. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. In that simple moment, something inside me shifted. The armor I'd worn for years, loneliness, heartache, detachment, began to crack. And through the fractures, her light began to seep in. We left the library just before midnight. The rain had stopped. The world outside felt damp and clean, like it had been rinsed of everything heavy. I live just a few blocks away, she said. If you'd like to walk me. I'd like that, I replied. Her apartment was small but inviting, filled with books, low lights, and a faint record playing old jazz in the background. We stood in her doorway, neither of us moving. Want to stay for tea? She asked. He nodded. That night there were no kisses, no heavy touches, just hours of conversation, about what mattered and what didn't. She eventually fell asleep on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder. I watched her breathe, and for the first time in a long while, something inside me truly let go. The next morning she made pancakes. We laughed, real hearty laughter, the kind I hadn't felt in years. After that night we started seeing each other more. Slowly, quietly. She'd send me poems. I'd text her pages from manuscripts I was working on. We'd meet for coffee, for walks, for quiet movie nights in old theaters. It wasn't sweeping or cinematic. It was gentle, steady, real. She didn't try to fix me. Didn't ask me to relive the things that hurt. She just stayed. But time has a way of brushing against even the most delicate things. 3 months later, we sat on a park bench, the evening light fading behind her. Her face was unreadable. I need to tell you something, she said. I braced myself. There was someone, she continued. His name was Julian. He was my fiancé. He died in a car accident 2 years ago. We were supposed to be married that spring. She looked down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I haven't let anyone in since. Until you. I didn't say anything. I don't know how to do this, she added. How to love someone new without feeling like I'm betraying him.